कृतं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। By keeping that portion of the class dark, we are inviting अज्ञान। कृष्ण सूर्य सम माया है अंधकार। Okay, so we are going to the last section of the chapter. So till now, Vyasadeva has been speaking about the glories of devotional service, the effects of devotional service. To whom? To the Supreme Lord, Krishna, correct? Supreme devotional service to whom? So why only Supreme Lord Krishna? That is what Vyasadeva is now explaining. In the next section from 23 to 29, he is explaining the superiority of worshipping Vishnu over all others. 23. Sattvam rajastamaiti prakrutir gunaste yukta patna. Wait. Sattvam rajastamaiti prakrutir gunaste yukta para purusha ek ihasya dhatte sthityaadaye hari virinchi hareti sanyam shreyam sitatra khalu sattvatano nrinam syu. The transcendental personality of Godhead is indirectly associated with the three modes of material nature, namely passion, goodness, and ignorance. And just for the material world's creation, maintenance, and destruction, he accepts the three qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Of these three, all human beings can derive ultimate benefit from Vishnu, the form of the quality of goodness. So the Lord expands himself into the Guna Avataras for the sake of what? Sthiti Adaye. Sthiti Adaye. Sthiti means maintenance. Adaye means creation, destruction. So for that purpose, he indirectly associates Sattvam Rajas Tamaiti Prakriti Gunaste. Indirectly associates with the three gunas for the purpose of creation, maintenance, destruction, and expands himself into Hari, Virinchi, Hara. Hari is Vishnu, Virinchi is Brahma, and Hara is Shiva. So he expands himself into these three. But then he says, Shreyamsi Tatra. Shreya. The ultimate benefit one will get from Sattvatano. Nrinam means all the human beings will get the ultimate benefit, Shreya, from Sattvatano. Who is Sattvatano? Vishnu. So here, Sattva does not mean material Sattva, but it means Shuddha Sattva. Lord Vishnu, who is on the platform of Shuddha Sattva. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining about the incarnations, how Krishna expands from the Baladev, and from Baladev Shankarshan, and from Shankarshan is Narayan. From Narayan there's a second Shankarshan, and from this Shankarshan the Vishnu Purusha Avataras. So that's how all the incarnations they originate. And of course, in the next chapter, we'll be in detail, we'll be studying about the various incarnations. And then Srila Prabhupada is explaining why the Lord comes into this material world. So I'm reading somewhere midway down the paragraph. When Vishnu, the personality of God, appears in the material world, he comes to deliver the conditioned living beings who are under the material energy. Such living beings appear in the material world with intentions of being lords, and thus they become entrapped by the three modes of nature. Okay. So, as such, the living entities have to change their material coverings for undergoing different terms of imprisonment. The prison house of the material world is created by Brahma under instruction of the personality of God. And at the conclusion of a kalpa, the whole thing is destroyed by Shiva. But as far as maintenance of the prison house is concerned, it is done by Vishnu, as much as the state prison house is maintained by the state. Anyone, therefore, who wishes to get out of this prison house of material existence, which is full of mysteries like repetition of birth, death, and old age, must please Lord Vishnu for such liberation. Lord Vishnu is worshipped by devotional service only, and if anyone has to continue prison life in the material world, he may ask for relative facilities for temporary relief from the different demigods like Shiva, Brahma, and Lord. No demigod, however, can release the imprisoned living being from the conditioned life of material existence. This can be done only by Vishnu. Therefore, the ultimate benefit may be derived from Vishnu personality. So, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport to Devesha Gunamai, there towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada quotes from some Purana, I suppose. And he writes, Mukti pranata sarvesham Vishnur eva na samshaya. Mukti pradata. Who can give mukti? Only Vishnu. Vishnu eva. Only Vishnu. No samshaya. No doubt. Nobody else can give mukti. So therefore, the best benefit the living entities can get, Shreyamsi, is from Vishnu. Now, to explain the relative importance of the three modes, is giving an analogy in the next verse. Parthivadhar nodhumas tasmad agnistrei mayaha tamasastu rajastasmad sattvam yad brahma darshanam. Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than raw wood. And fire is still better, for by fire we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge through Vedic sacrifices. Similarly, passion, rajas, is better than ignorance, tamas, but goodness, sattva, is best, because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth. Okay, so just like from earth, firewood comes. How from earth firewood comes?
Tree grows from earth. Tree grows from earth.
Trees grow from earth. And then?
Wood is from tree.
Okay, wood is from trees. Okay, so firewood is a transformation of earth. Then you burn the firewood. First of all, there is smoke. But with smoke, one cannot use it, right? Not much use of smoke. But it's better than the wood. And better than the smoke is the fire. So similarly, lowest is tamas, then rajas, then sattva. So Prabhupada writes in the first paragraph, but if there are impediments on the progressive path, anyone, even from the platform of tamas, can gradually rise to the sattva platform by the expert direction of the spiritual master. Sincere candidates must therefore approach an expert spiritual master for such a progressive march, and the bona fide expert spiritual master is competent to direct a disciple from any stage of life, tamas, rajas, or sattva. Okay, so ultimately, by the directions of the spiritual master, one may be at any level, tamagun, rajagun, but he can rise to the highest platform by following those directions. But then, of course, ultimately, sattva is definitely conducive. So therefore, one must come to sattva. One must try to come to sattva. So Prabhupada writes, the rajas stage of life gives a slight clue to the realization of the absolute truth in the forms of fine sentiments, philosophy, art, culture with moral and ethical principles. But the mode of sattva is a still higher stage of material quality, which actually helps one in realizing the absolute truth. So in Rajagun, one can get a slight clue. So one can engage one's different propensities and try to realize the absolute truth. But then the actual benefit one gets from sattva. So therefore, text 25 says, previously all the great sages rendered service under the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. So, understanding the superiority of worship of Vishnu over everyone else. So, many great sages have worshipped the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and so therefore one must follow in the footsteps of these great authorities. And then in the next verse, he is talking about those who don't worship Lord Vishnu, then they worship others. Whom they worship? Mumukshava ghora rupan hitva bhutapatina atha narayana kalashanta bhajanti hi anusuyavaha. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious and they respect all. Yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his friendly portions. So those who are mumukshava, those who want liberation, they know that for liberation, only one person can give liberation. Who's that? Yes, only Vishnu. But still, those who are serious about liberation, they are also non-envious, anusuyava. So because they're anusuyava, non-envious, they respect everyone. They respect all living entities. But at the same time, they give up the worship of the Ghora Rupan. Who's Ghora Rupan? The demigods. And Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada especially talks about Kali, Kala Bhairava, Mahakali. So all this is Ghora Rupan. So they respect all, but still, Prabhupada writes, Kala Bhairava, Shmashan Bhairava, Shani, Mahakali, Chandika. So these demigods are worshipped mostly by those who are in the lowest categories of the mode of darkness or ignorance. So then those who are aspiring for liberation, they give up the worship of all these demigods. It's not that they're envious, they respect everyone, but they know that these people cannot give liberation, so they don't worship them. Right. So Prabhupada in the end of the purport he quotes that Vishnu and no one else is called Mukti Path, or the personality of God who can bestow upon us Mukti or liberation. 27. Those under the modes of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers, other living beings, and the demigods who are in charge of cosmic activities, for their urge by desire to be materially benefited with women, wealth, power, and progeny. So this is demigod worship. So everyone knows 720 Bhagavad Gita? Yes, Kamastesya Jnana Prapatyanti Anya Devata. So for fulfilling their material desires, then they worship the various demigods. Nice sentence Prabhupada writes towards the end of the purport. He says, worshipping the multi-demigods for material gain is practically a perversity of religion. Ketav Dharma. This sort of religious activity has been condemned in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam as Ketav Dharma. There is only one religion in the world to be followed by one and all, and that is the Bhagavad Dharma, or the religion which teaches one to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and no one else. And so therefore in 28-29 finally concludes that one should worship Vasudeva. Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Paramata, Vasudeva Parayoga, Vasudeva Parakriyaha, Vasudeva Param Jnanam, Vasudeva Param Tapaha, Vasudeva Paro Dharmo, Vasudeva Paragati. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion or dharma is rendering loving service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. So, and Prabhupada is explaining each of these in brief, how Vasudeva is the goal of everything. Prabhupada gives a nice definition of tapasya. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. So Ravana and Hiranyakashipu also did tapasya. But can that actually be called tapasya in the real sense? Of course, it is tapasya in Tamoguna. But then he says one should accept voluntary bodily inconvenience for the sake of knowing Vasudeva, because that is the way of real austerities. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. And towards the end of the purport, he gives an analogy. I think we've heard this many times. In the prison house, there are the prisoners and the managers of the prison house. Both the managers and the prisoners are bound by the laws of the king. But even though the king sometimes comes in the prison, he is not bound by the laws of the prison house. The king is therefore always transcendental to the laws of prison house, as the Lord is always transcendental to the laws of the material world. So even though the Lord comes, he is always transcendental. So in this way, in these verses, he has proved that the worship of Vasudeva is the best, and therefore we need to perform devotional service to Vasudeva, and then we can experience all the effects that have been mentioned in the previous verses. And in the last section, he is speaking about the Purusha avatars in brief. And of course, they will be discussed in much more detail in the further chapters. So we are not going into great details, we'll just go through these verses. Text 30. In the beginning of the material creation, that absolute personality of Godhead Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. Okay, so here he is referring to how he expands himself into so many different energies for the purpose of creation. 31. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. So who is this? This is Garbhodaksha Vishnu. The Garbhodaksha Vishnu who enters into every universe. And then of course Garbhodaksha Vishnu also expands into the Paramatma present in each and every living entity. So that's what he says in the next verse, 32. The Lord as Super Soul pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood. And so he appears to be of many varieties, although he is the absolute one without a second. Please read this purport, very nice purport.
Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of his plenary parts expands himself all over the material world, and his existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. Matter, antimatter, proton, neutron. In all these, one can perceive the manifestation of the Paramatma feature of the Lord by proper spiritual culture. As from wood, fire can be manifested, or as butter can be churned out of milk, so also the presence of the Lord as Paramatma can be felt by the process of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects which are especially treated in the Vedic literatures, like the Upanishad and Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam is the bona fide explanation of these Vedic literatures. The Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message, and that is the only way to experience the transcendental subject. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace, the spiritual master, can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual message injected through the receptive ear. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only, and thus divine existence is gradually realized. The difference between animality and humanity lies in this process only. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot.
So the Super Soul is present in each atom. Verse Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastha. Now here Prabhupada is writing, Lord Vasudeva, Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of his plenary parts, expands himself all over the material world, and his existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. Matter, antimatter, proton, neutron, etc. are all different effects of the Paramatma feature of the Lord. What does this mean? Engineers have studied no? Matter, proton, neutron, electron. So what does it mean? How the Paramatma can be perceived in atom, proton, neutron?
Seventh chapter mentions that how Lord can be seen.
ठीक है. How in the atom?
Within the atom, the protons and neutrons, they are in motion.
Hmm.
That unless until there is a presence of super soul, then it cannot be part.
Correct. Good points. Hmm.
So we have studied that protons are positively charged,
Hmm.
electrons are negatively charged.
Hmm.
They are at such a short distance,
Mm-hmm.
nanometers, but they don't fall into each other.
Mhm.
They keep their distance. The atom exists.
Hmm.
That proves that someone has maintained that position.
Hmm.
Otherwise, by natural laws, positive and negative should fall into each other.
Correct. Hmm. And they rotate also, correct? And because of these, the rotation of the electrons and the position of protons, neutrons, what is the result of that?
Flow of current.
Huh?
Motion of electrons is flow of current.
Okay.
Energy is generated.
And
Energy is created. That's how atomic energy is created, correct?
No,
No.
that's different.
That's different.
Neutrons are bombarded to the nucleus,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes on in a chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Energy release,
Mm.
chemical reactions.
So, what is the cause of every chemical has some specific characteristics, correct?
Yes.
You studied chemistry, no? So, what is the cause of those characteristics?
The valency, the electrons in the outermost orbit
Mm.
decides the valency of the atom.
Mm.
That leads to the property.
Mm. So, you're revising some chemistry, eh?
I forgot the terms also.
So, you using chemistry in Krishna service. But, so the fact is, actually Srila Prabhupada explains in one lecture that every element has specific characteristics because of the presence of Paramatma. That is why there are those specific characteristics. Correct? Those position of protons, neutrons, electrons, they are creating those characteristics, correct? So all that is arranged by the Paramatma within every atom. Therefore, there are specific characteristics, and then he says, so every chemical has some taste, smell, color. Okay? In chemistry, we have a difficult time to study all that, correct? And then he says there is one chemical, nobody knows the taste. Potassium cyanides. Because as soon as he tastes, he won't live to tell the taste. So that's the point. So here he's saying his existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. So this is how his existence can be perceived, by the characteristics of that particular substance. And so matter, antimatter, proton, neutron, etc. are different effects of the Paramatma feature of the Lords. This is actual chemistry, which the chemists don't know. And then he's saying, so how can one perceive the Paramatma? So nice example is given. Just like the fire is present within woods, but the fire has to be extricated from the wood by a process. Or butter within milk. So butter is there, but then one has to remove the butter by a process. So similarly, the presence of Paramatma can be felt by legitimate process, the process of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects. So that is the process to perceive the presence of the Paramatma. And then very nicely is explained that just as fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. Divine consciousness is already there, but it has to be kindled by another divine grace, the spiritual master. So his divine grace, the spiritual master, can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual messages injected through the receptive ears. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only. And thus divine existence is gradually realized. In the Bhagavad Gita 15 chapter 19th verse purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, one must not simply hear like the hogs. So if hogs come to the class, they'll hear or no?
Here.
They got ears, no?
Yeah.
Hogs have ears or no? So they will hear, but after the hearing, what will happen? Yes, nothing will happen. So that is the point. So Prabhupada is writing there, one must not simply hear like the hogs. So that means after we hear, what should happen? Some transformation should happen. Otherwise, what is the use of the hearing if no transformation takes place? So therefore, he is saying that that is the difference between animality and humanity. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot. So for that, one must have receptive ears. Receptive ears. So then one can hear and then bring a transformation. 33. The supersoul enters in the bodies of the created beings or influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. Okay, so this is told in the Bhagavad Gita also. So because of the influence of the modes, there is happiness, distress. What is the verse? 13th chapter, 22nd verse. 13th chapter, 22nd verse is considered to be the most important verse, the Mahavakya of the last 6 chapters. Prakriti Kriyaman is 327. Yes, Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhumte Prakriti Jnana Gunan Karanam Gunasangasya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. So it is because the Purusha Bhava, the Jiva is trying to become Purusha, and as a result of that, he gets the different bodies. Prabhupada, there is a nice sentence here. The Lord as Paramatma helps the living being to get material happiness because the living being is helpless in all respects in obtaining what he desires. He proposes and the Lord disposes. So even if the Jiva wants to enjoy materially, he is dependent on the Supreme Lord. And then he writes, the sufferings and enjoyments of the sons are indirectly the sufferings and enjoyments of the father. Still, the father is not in any way affected directly by the suffering and enjoyment of the sons. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. So, because the Jivas are suffering in this world, Paramatma definitely feels for them, but he is not affected by them. And the last verse. Thus, the Lord of the universe maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. So this is Leela Avatar. So the Lord comes as various Leela Avatars. For what purpose? To reclaim those who are in the mode of goodness. So this is the purpose. So this is the answer to which question? Yes, the 5th question. The 5th question is what? Yes, why the Lord incarnates in various Leela avatars, correct? On the pastimes of the various Leela avatars. So this is the answer to the fifth question. The answer to the fourth question is the description of the Purusha avatars given in the previous verses. That is the answer to the fourth question. Of course, there are more details about these Purusha avatars in all the further cantos, but then some details are over here. And Leela avatars also so many details in the next chapter and so many other further chapters. So here Srila Prabhupada writes, Lord Vishnu incarnates himself in each and every one of them, means in each and every planets, in each and every material universe, and in each and every type of living society. So many forms. That's why in the next chapter we said, how many incarnations are there? Like the waves of the river. He manifests his transcendental pastimes amongst them just to create the desire to go back to Godhead. The Lord, of course, he does not change his original transcendental position, but he appears to be differently manifested according to the particular times of the society. Sometimes he incarnates himself or empowers a suitable living being to act for him, but in either case, the purpose is the same. The Lord wants the suffering living being to go back home, back to Godhead. The happiness which the living beings are hankering for is not to be found within any corner of the innumerable universes and material planets. The eternal happiness which the living being wants is obtainable in the kingdom of God. But the forgetful living beings under the influence of the material modes have no information of the kingdom of God. The Lord therefore comes to propagate the message of the kingdom of God either personally or as an incarnation or as bona fide representative as the good Son of God. Such incarnations or sons of God are not making propaganda for going back to God only within human society. Their work is also going on in all types of societies amongst demigods and those other than human beings. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, second chapter, the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Divinity and Divine Service. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Other types of societies means
Animal society, bird society, beast society.
they are also going back to Godhead.
No, the Lord incarnates in those species just to create a desire. So somehow they will also get attracted to the Lord by seeing special fish, special tortoise, and the other tortoises will get attracted.
So they create desire to.
Ah.
And then, but they go on when they come
No,
to
no,
the
no.
common.
Of course, they have to come to human form and all that.
Exceptional are there. Online they believe that.
Promotion to the next species.
Yes. But at least their consciousness will get more purified, isn't it? Just like in the morning, Ramrupa was saying, if somebody sees the Lord, he appreciates when his bhakti begins. So similarly, the other fish may appreciate such a big fish.
But then the animals, they don't have the intelligence to.
No, they don't have intelligence, but at least that much they can appreciate, no? Such a big fish, they can't appreciate.
Sukriti, yeah, Sukriti.
Yes, that's what. Bhakti will begin. Anything else?
With this 24th verse, the analogy I didn't understood. Here, of course, the analogy says is that firewood is compared to mode of ignorance,
Mm.
and then the smoke is compared to mode of passion,
Mm.
the fire is to the mode of goodness.
Correct.
So how smoke is better than wood? Because smoke is like creates only disturbance.
No, but then still you can blow away the smoke and you can use the fire.
If and only if the smoke transforms into fire, then only the smoke is better.
No, but then it's like the smoke will eventually develop into the fire, na? So usually there is fire, that's why there is smoke, na? Without any fire, how can there be just smoke? At least some fire is there, that's why smoke comes out. Na?
In case if the fire goes on for a long time, then there will be proper fire. Otherwise, only smoke comes.
So that's why, so the analogy is, if one remains only in the mode of passion, then that's not sufficient. One has to come to goodness.
So then the smoke is at least better than the firewood. Smoke is better than the firewood.
So that's what it's saying, no? The smoke is better than the firewood.
That's what my question is, how? Because smoke is not good at all. At least firewood, it doesn't create disturbance to others.
Mm.
Smoke is just
Smoke is definitely, it may create some disturbance, but it's a precursor to the fire. No?
Okay, so that is the only thing.
Mm.
Another question is this: the 25th shloka that we were discussing, how to respect. We respect the demigods.
Mm.
So, this one thing about respecting demigods is, oftentimes I get confused in this because one is we don't disrespect them.
Mm.
So one is manasadriyata, that let's say if we happen to pass by any Kali Chandi temple, Durga temple, so one is you stand there and fold your hands, or maybe if it is possible we can bow down also. We are respecting. Another is just in the mind only, just go ahead. So what is the correct way?
Correct way is to respect,
How?
whatever way is possible.
No, let's say I give you this situation case study. Let's
No,
say
you don't have to get into so many complexities about that. One can respect, that's all. One can respect representative of the Supreme Lord. So, in fact, from Srila Prabhupada's life, we see that he never actually even bowed down or something like that. Maybe he respected in the mind, that's all. So there is no example of Vaishnavas worshipping, bowing down, all that. There is one pastime in Chennai, then Madras. Giraj Maharaj tells about this pastime. So they visited one. Somehow, somebody called the devotees, I think, so to some Shiva temple, there was Shiva Lingam. And so then they were doing circumambulation of the Shiva Lingam, and they were offering flowers. So then all the devotees were offering flowers to the Shiva Lingam. And then Srila Prabhupada didn't offer directly to the Shiva Lingam, he threw the flowers in some corner. So then afterwards, they were curious why he threw in the corner. They saw that actually there was a small Krishna murti there. So even in that Shiva temple, Prabhupada found some Krishna deity and offered flowers there. So that's the example set by Acharyas. So in the mind we can respect. Good enough. And surely not accept demigod prasadam. No, some of our ISKCON devotees think it is all right to accept demigod prasadam. They don't know, none of these personalities accept this, all these things offered by materialistic people. They're all Vaishnavas, correct? Whether it is Hanuman or any of the demigods, they're all Vaishnavas. So therefore they don't accept all this stuff from all these materialistic people. They don't accept. So Srila Prabhupada writes specifically in the 4th canto purports. He says when these people offer, he talks about how in Calcutta there are some places where they sell meat and they say it is Kali Prasad. So they think that people will be more attracted to take this meat because it is Kali Prasad. So Prabhupada says that Durga Kali, she is what? Vaishnavi. She is Vaishnavi. She is devotee. So why will she accept all this meat and fish? She doesn't accept. Right? Like in Jagannath temple, what they do? Bimla Devi. Yes, they offer Jagannath Prasad to her. Because that's what she accepts. So when they offer meat and fish, she does not accept. Then what she does? She gives to her associates. Bhoot, Pret. So what it is actually? Bhoot Prasad. That is what they get. Not Kali Prasad. So therefore, Vaishnavas are strictly forbidden never to accept any sort of prasad in demigod temples. It's not even the demigod's prasad, it is nothing.
With a small comment. On the other side, we understand this, that we should respect all demigods, but on the other side, we should not develop hatred for them.
Yes.
I heard one class, His Holiness Halda Seminar was mentioning that one of our great devotee, in a moment, he actually had hatred for Lord Shiva, and later he, stepped down from his position, and he speak like Lord Shiva, like blasphemy and
He's topmost Vaishnava, how can one blaspheme? There's no question, especially Lord Shiva, he's the topmost Vaishnava, how can one disrespect? Forget about criticizing, not disrespect. No, there's no question of disrespect. In fact, that's one of the angas of bhakti, right? 64 angas, one of the angas of bhakti is this. To respect all the demigods, one should respect. No worship. Of course, Prabhupada says Vaishnava respects every living entity. What to speak of demigods? Alright? Okay? Relax now. Fine, so thank you all very much. So once again, I would like to express my gratitude to Sundar Chaitanya Prabhu for kindly inviting me to render some small service here at ISKCON Juhu. And so I'm extremely grateful for your wonderful participation over the past few days. So it was very wonderful to see so many brahmacharis very enthusiastic to study the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so in your association, definitely I could learn a lot. So definitely all of you are busy with so many different services, but spending almost 4.5 hours every day to study the Bhagavatam, definitely big tapasya. And we're sure that Srila Prabhupada will be pleased to offer the fruit of the tapasya in the form of the Bhakti Vaibhav certificate. And much more. So, but thank you all very much, and we look forward to your association again for the next units. So, so now the rest of the job is yours to write the closed book test, and so please note the closed book test. So when is it?
Tomorrow 11.
Tomorrow 11 o'clock. Okay, so so when date is fixed, so date has been finalized with the consensus of everyone, correct?
Yes.
So when it has been finalized with everyone's consensus, then everyone needs to come. Okay? Just like in university, when the university declares examination dates, can you say that sorry sir, I can't give tomorrow, I'll give after 1 month? Can you say? Unless there is some no. Does the university accept emergencies also?
Only medical, that too extreme.
Yeah, extreme medical, something like that. Then otherwise, next batch, correct? It's like that only, no?
Yeah.
So we also have same policy, yeah? Please note. So we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Patit Pavan and this and that, all that is fine. But we are running institute. So we want to follow rules and regulations. All right. So if anyone has some difficulties, then the difficulties should be expressed when the date is being fixed. At that time only raise your voice, raise your opinion, change the date, do everything before it is finalized. Once it is finalized, then everyone needs to appear. Please note. Unless emergencies. And in case of emergency, you have to write a letter and give it to Sundar Chaitanya Prabhu. Alright? Then only it will be accepted. Please note, we are not joking here, I am talking serious things now. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
I wanted one point to mention here. As we get the schedule of the classes for every unit, so similarly, why don't we have them well before only the exam at the end of the session or something like that? Other we have to discuss the exam like this date, and somebody says oh no, somebody says yes, then some finalizations. So if it comes like every unit end of the term, this is the fixed part we have for the exams like the sessions. That will be easy for all of us to prepare well before, because
You would like to say something, Sonakshi?
Hare Krishna. We don't mind if everybody agrees that day only, in the evening or something, we can have maybe at around.
You mean the last day of the unit?
There are some devotees, they're traveling outside or here, there, so then they can, next day they can plan to travel also. So if everybody agrees, tomorrow's we are final, tomorrow 11 o'clock. Henceforth then, if everybody agrees, the same day, the last day, in the evening, 7 o'clock, you can have. How many of you are okay with that? Only few are okay.
Count. Vote.
Others no. Okay.
आधा पकड़ो, आधा उनका आधा है.
20, about 20.
Next couple
20.
Next
Next Saturday 11 o'clock. Like this we are doing every time we can do this.
Same day बोल रहे हैं.
Next option I will give. Second option like Saturday 11 o'clock every time.
Next day.
Okay. Next Saturday.
Next
day.
After the course, next day.
Saturday.
Okay. So Saturday 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So how many are there for Saturday 11 o'clock?